Thank you all for joining. Um, I want to welcome everyone. If this is your first roundtable, welcome. It's really good. This will be our second corporate member-only roundtable of the year. So we're always looking to improve, and so please be sure to give us your feedback if this is your first or your second. This is an exciting time. We are in the midst of vetting our 350 startup applications to share with you very, very soon. It's been a robust list and diverse with their ideas, so we hope you all are as excited as we are, as we will be hopefully getting those to you very soon. And then your scoring begins. As we look ahead to the next phase of our pitch program, we wanted to share today's roundtable to really dig into ways of working with startups and focus on the conversation around areas of innovation, the next frontier of nutrition. It's something key to many of you all as members, as really trying to dive deeper into what this means in terms of your investment in innovation and how you strive to meet those ever-growing demands of what is viewed as the new frontier or the next frontier of nutrition. Our startup scouting lead, Sonia Sheckers, is going to get online shortly, and she's going to share 2 startup case studies with all of you. And we want to use those as an example of to frame our discussion today when we are in the small group sessions. And then we're going to share back to the broader team what those key understandings or those key learnings that we felt were relevant and what drives our own organizations to engage with innovation and sort of set the tone to make big steps or small steps that we believe are going to get us to the path of adopting and changing our models. We heard from many of you that you value hearing from your peers, so this is your time to really share, to be a little more vulnerable, to get from them what you need help with, but also for them to hear about what worked for you guys. So this is a safe community, so please use this platform to engage deeply and openly with everyone. Following the group discussion today, we're going to have Trevor speak, who will talk to us about what's going on with our alumni and share some highlights there, and he's going to then wrap up the session. These highlights, we believe, really serve as yet another way for you to engage with the roster of impressive alumni that we have built over the last 6 years. So if you're interested and you want an introduction to any of the alumni that Trevor is referring, please let us know. Finally, I have 2 housekeeping items, and then we're going to go into our group discussions. First, there's a quick note on member scoring. As I opened up, I told you we are in the middle of vetting them. We have, believe it or not, I think 350 applications, and we are overwhelmed with scoring. They're all taking a lot of time. So our CP applications are going to be delayed. They're going to be pushed out a week, so you're going to be receiving them on May 28th, but you're going to have until June 10th to score those. This is the same amount of time that was originally laid out. It's just pushing it out a little further. The second is that we are continuously working to make the Food Bites platform in its entirety a more valuable platform to serve our members. There is a survey link. I know all of you love doing surveys, but please, we really value your feedback, and it's really crucial as we are now very much in the planning phase already what we're going to drive our 2022 programming with, and this input is really important to us. So we'd be really grateful if you could take, literally 5 minutes to fill that out. And then without any further ado, enough talking for me, I want to have Sonia come on and talk about through the analysis of case studies. So with that, I pass it on.
Hello and welcome. I'll kick off today with a quick overview of our Innovation Trend Report. As consumer expectations for food and beverage products expand beyond taste to include health benefits and enhanced performance, Technology will become a growing part of the product development equation. The almost medicinal demands from consumers around hot topics like gut health and immunity require new ingredients and a better understanding of food's nutritional value. This means developing entirely new ingredients or rethinking processing to allow for better product capabilities. This includes food biotechnology, which is not new, but consumer acceptance has increased, and there will likely be more applications as consumers demand products that are more sustainable and healthier. Technologies including gene and genome editing, fermentation, and cellular agriculture have emerged as exciting and investment-worthy opportunities. Particularly within the alternative protein and dairy sectors, fermentation has been touted as a solution for existing product issues like processing and texture. Fermentation will be able to effectively deliver more high-protein foods at scale for both human and animal consumption. As early success indicates, mycelium-based products are enjoying success in the market as taste enhancers and sweeteners, as is evidenced by industry-leading FoodBites startup alum and Rabobank client Mycotechnology, having closed a $48 million Series D earlier this year for meeting changing demands for clean labels and shorter ingredient lists. I'd like to share 2 case studies of how startups are experiencing this change in demand and how they are adapting their businesses to meet it. This first case study showcases the journey of Joywell, a direct-to-consumer sweetener company turned food technology company, developing a portfolio of B2B plant-based sweet proteins to reinvent the experience of everyday foods. Formerly known as Miraculex, the company got its start by bringing the miraculin protein, a naturally sweet compound found in the miracle berry, to market in mass quantities. The team commercialized a first-to-market protein-sweetened concept, the Pop Lolly, a reduced sugar popsicle product utilizing miraculin as a sweetener. Having seen the excitement from the consumer around their first product derived from the miracle berry, Joywell identified the growing need for additional functional proteins, as well as the prevalence of those proteins that already exist in nature. In July 2020, the company raised a $7 million Series A led by Kraft Heinz Evolve Ventures and began to use the funds to build out its proprietary fermentation technology platform, aiming to develop and commercialize a broad portfolio of sweet proteins, hence the rebranding from Miraculex to Joywell Foods to better reflect the company's pursuit of several sweet proteins and alternative substitutes. The next case study centers around building consumer trust and demand when commercializing a new ingredient as a food technology company. Dumatak, Israeli-based food tech company, has developed a technology that makes sugar taste sweeter. They add a carrier compound to ordinary sugar that targets the taste buds, allowing them to cut sugar levels by 30 to 50% in foods without affecting their taste. While their core business is selling this ingredient B2B, including a partnership with Europe's largest sugar producer, Südzucker, last month they launched their first D2C product, a hazelnut cocoa and caramel spread branded Incredo Sugar, to market entry into the US. This commercialization strategy will allow US consumers to taste a product made with the sugar reduction solution, experiencing for themselves the benefits of the new ingredient. While the company's long-term goal remains to focus on its business-to-business customers and partners, launching the product for US consumers will help not only meet, but create demand for their product, as well as validate the future goals and potential use cases of the ingredient. These 2 examples showcase the agility and speed with which 2 FoodBites alumni are able to not only meet changing consumer preferences, but to look at the supply chain holistically and target opportunities to bring technologies to market faster and more efficiently.
To the breakout groups, you've all been divided into, I think, 6 or 7 groups. There will be identified leaders in each group, but really we're going to look for your participation. So they may ask you to be the leader, so beware. Really the purpose of today is to really address a couple of questions that your leaders will have with them to help manage those teams. And then we will come back together. These discussions, the breakout groups will be about 30 minutes. We'll come back together for a broader discussion with the team. And then, as I mentioned, Trevor will step in give a little more of our alumni briefing, and then we will close out the meeting. And with that, I'm going to ask our assistants with dynamic events to now proceed with the breakouts.
Well, hopefully everybody had some really good breakout group discussions. I know our group did as well, and lots to share back with the team. We can go ahead, I think, and probably kick off and share some of what we were talking about. That first sort of prompt or question that we really dove into for us was thinking about, how does consumer demand shape your business? There were definitely a few different factors that came up. And we had a few different regions as well. We have someone from Toronto, Brazil, the States. So lots of different factors. I'm going to call on, I'll start with Cora. I think you'll be my first sort of victim or volunteer to share a little bit just about what you're seeing, what your company is looking at.
Sorry, with reference to what we talked about in the breakout call?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Okay.
Just thinking about different, how does consumer demand affect your company and the trajectory and kind of what you're looking at?
Yeah, sure. So I'd say that we probably have a bit of a, if it's not a literal map, it's a bit of a mental map of the ingredients that we're very excited about that are maybe 3 years out, and the ones that are maybe 1 year out, and the ones that are kind of currently hitting their stride in the market. So I'd put mushrooms as a superfood kind of at that current growth interest trajectory. But in talking about how we evaluate whether those have any consumer acceptance or are starting to get on that logarithmic upswing, is we look a lot at whether or not mass retailers are starting to talk and ask about those superfood ingredients, not just whether they're getting listed, but whether they're taking those initial tasting meetings and those kinds of things. That's a good rule of thumb for us for looking at whether they're getting consumer acceptance. And then I guess the other side of the conversation that we had in our breakout room as well had to do with, being careful about where that maybe crosses a line to being a trend versus being something that is a little bit more of a long-term lasting impact in moving towards a more healthy system. Sorry. And I know Ashley had some great points about emulsifiers, and we also talked about alt sweeteners in that.
Well, thanks. And Cora, I should have had you preface with this, and I'll ask everyone to do the same. Can you just briefly introduce yourself as well?
Oh, yes, sure. Cora from Investigo Capital. My colleague Andrew Heinzman is also in here. So we're a Toronto-based venture capital firm focused specifically on the sustainable food sector. We've been around for about 20 years, but focused on the food sector for the last 10, and we invest both in Canada and the States.
All right.
Thanks, Jillian.
Anybody else want to share some of what they're looking at or what their companies are, sort of how they're dealing with consumer preference and changes?
I mean, it's interesting, kind of,
Don't be afraid on anyone, call anyone out.
sort of building off of that. I mean, one of the things we were talking about quite a bit, like in the plant-based space, like for us, one of the kind of key Achilles heels we see within plant-based is like the nutritional content of things. Just because, a lot of products, for example, the other day we were tasting some plant-based cheeses and looked at the nutrition facts, and it was almost entirely saturated fat. And so, that is something, especially because the evolution of the plant-based industry, kind of first and foremost, I think comes out of like the climate, care, but also almost importantly is like the health perception. And, if we don't quickly find a way to make plant-based products, as healthy or almost as healthy as sort of their meat or dairy counterparts, that does pose a risk. We potentially go down the route of what happened with all the, fat-free trends. And, so for us, as we're looking to innovation, it's kind of figuring out, teasing out trends from long-term. And I think a key part of that is, products that have longevity because they have quality nutrition and aren't just answering the trend of people want plant-based versions of what they've consumed previously within the meat and dairy categories, because a lot of the consumers that we're going after as a larger company, it's not the 8% vegan population. It is, the multi-outlet, the Target shopper, the Walmart shopper across the country. And, that shopper is going to prioritize taste, but also, if they feel like plant-based is supposed to be healthier, that nutrition label does need to stand up to that. So that's kind of one of the key areas that we're trying to focus on and balance, is how do we get the nutrition to be better and more recognizable ingredients.
Gio, do you want to speak about a little bit about what we talked about, or kind of how you guys are looking at some of this, especially around the aligned data around how you're determining what is the trend and where to invest in?
Did you call on me, Ann? Sorry, I cut out.
I did call
Okay. All right. Yeah, so at Bolt House, so kind of echoing on what Adrian said, we license scan data and panel data, both a UPC level and attribute level data, to really understand where ingredient trends are going. And so, Bolt House Farms has a massive footprint in multi-outlet, Albertsons, Safeway, Kroger, Target, Walmart. What we like to do is see where those ingredient trends are in the natural channel, see what's really starting to pick up steam, and say, hey, is this something that we think can cross over or is about to break into multi-outlet? And one of the things, some of the ingredients that we talked about in our breakout session were these medicinal mushroom products that are really starting to pick up steam in multi-outlet, but haven't really got to full mainstream adoption yet. There's still people that think, what are mushrooms? That's kind of weird. It's kind of like the probiotic bacteria stuff. Some people still think that's kind of weird. So, but we think that based on what we're seeing in the data, so the SPINS data that we're licensing, the attribute data that we're licensing, this is an ingredient that's going to cross over into the mainstream.
If Meg Legro is on, she was just about to talk about some mushroom topics in our group before it broke away.
Hi. Sorry that I am dialing in by phone today, but yeah, I was just saying that one of the biggest, we were talking in our group about kind of ingredients and trends we are seeing around food and beverage and ingredients that were being added in. And I was just saying one of the biggest things we've been seeing is around mushrooms and different use cases for mushrooms, whether it be kind of under the plant-based meat replacement realm or in a powdered form as a functional ingredient in food and beverage, as well as just kind of on a dietary supplement front. Definitely a growing area of interest and one that we've seen consumers taking an interest in.
First of all, I'm going to call on you as well and share a little bit. I think you've got an interesting perspective to share in terms of, you were talking about, kind of consumer preferences and this millennial sort of drive. So I want to call on you and share a little bit about what you were telling our group with that.
Right, of course. That's what I mentioned earlier, is that's one of the time that being younger is like an advantage, because for me, when I start like a negotiation or something, like making a point to people older than 50 years old, it's like they don't understand how it's going to be like the new consumer in 5 to I don't know 10 years. And so I mentioned like a case of the like Coca-Cola and those kinds of products, how the consumption from 20 years or younger is going to be like going away, because I can see it like in my brothers, in my friends, but also like alcohol consumption and I would say like tobacco. I'm not sure if that's like for this case, but like there are like a lot of trends that are going to be amazing for those industries. That's why I think that being like somehow like a millennial gives you an advantage because you see it like every day.
Thanks, Cristobal. Does anyone want to share, looking at some of the other questions that we went through, does anyone want to share some of the other sort of areas within NextGen of nutrition that your company is looking at, or partnerships that you've tried at, whether it's failed or succeeded?
If I may add something, is that like I would say that being for everyone, I'm based here in Chile, Latin America, so like being in like a less developed country or region, it's like another advantage because we can see what is happening, like I don't know, in Europe or in North America, and we are like 3 or 4 years like like earlier, so we can say we can like have like some advantage of knowing like the trends like that they are happening right now in more developed countries. But like also as I mentioned, we have to be able to make them economic viable, because sometimes like what an European consumer may be willing to pay way different than like I would say like a Latin American consumer. So that a trend, one, and second, can we make it more economic viable from here? I would say those are all the trends.
I would definitely second the idea that functional mushrooms are gaining a lot of steam. We still definitely spend time in the prebiotic space as another element of improving microbiome health, gut health, and helping fill the fiber gap that we have. And not talked about in a plant-based meat context, but I do wonder if in 4 or 5 years that might be the case.
Yeah, I think that's also with fermentation coming together with mushrooms. I think that's sort of the next level of alt protein explosion, but we'll see.
Two areas we talked about on our session were, and I don't know if anybody from our group, Max or there, but we talked a little bit about personalization of nutrition and sort of what that meant too for the supply chain. And we also talked about, this idea of, food as medicine more broadly, and Munir can talk about like what they're looking at in that space as well, if anybody wants to jump in.
I'd be happy to jump in for that, if that's okay. Just given my background, just to contextualize, I'm the Chief Scientific Officer of Germinate Ventures, which is a venture capitalism firm, and we focus on backing impact-driven companies in the food and agricultural space. Tend to invest in seed, Series A, B. My professional background, though, is I'm a medical doctor. So I've been practicing in GI and liver pathology for over 15 years. And, people will ask why a VC? Well, I had already gave this to my breakout group, but for too long that the world of food and medicine have been separate. And, it's about time that we kind of bring those two together. And if you want to really impact health, you do it through food and ag. So anyways, to combat that question, I feel like the only thing about food as medicine is I almost want to break it into two things. I think there's a difference between food is medicine versus food as medicine, because food is medicine to me is just eating healthy. And this, you see a lot of like, for example, different cultures that are just have food cultures. Humans can adapt to all sorts of different diets. And as long as it's a real food diet, seems to, oh, sorry, I'm having a delay. Is someone hearing something? Okay, sorry. Anyways, as long as it's a real food diet, it seems like people have adapted and we just want to eat healthy, real food. Now, the issue is, I think food as medicine is a little different. I think this is when you empower people to be their own healers and they target disease and pre-disease states through either nutraceuticals or through precision nutrition. And the nutraceuticals could be either as a supplement or a functional food, as we're talking about with mushrooms. You can either, eat a mushroom, or you can have some kind of, supplement of it that's some compound that would be like a micronutrient, But for precision nutrition, the issue with that is we're really at a base of a mountain looking up. We have a long ways to go, but I think this idea of a one-size-fits-all diet, that might apply for most of the healthy population, but for people who are sick or have dysbiosis, meaning bad bacteria in their gut, then we would have to kind of really customize a diet based on their genetics, their disease state, their microbiome, their metabolome, and all these different omics. I don't want to take over the conversation, but I could go on from here if we need to. I'll let someone say something, and then I can add more about what we need to get to that place.
Well, I think it's what's interesting about what you're saying, Ashley, is that we've looked at it separately for so long that what we're on the forefront of is people trying to realign it back with, what does the consumer wants what it believes its body is going to be healthiest operating under. And that's sort of, going back to the mind or the millennial shift, that is what the emerging consumers are looking for. It's not just a joy of eating, it's a health of eating. It's a shift. Yeah. I love that was very valuable. Thank you.
Yeah, which the only thing I do want to add based on what people were saying before, because of all these trends, the one trend I do think, and this is what I actually posed it more as a question to people than as an answer, is I think real food is the solution. The issue is that quality level food isn't accessible to everyone due to budget and time constraints, due to food deserts, due to cultural eating habits. How do we get real food available, but it's more expensive. It spoils faster. When we're talking about CPGs and things like that, that's a question I'm really interested for people to think about. And the one example I gave in our breakout room is Nature, the big publication just a month ago, was talking about emulsifiers act as detergents and essentially damage the gut epithelial lining and may be one of the driving factors behind a lot of our epidemics. But emulsifiers are in virtually every processed food. So how do you get around things like that?
Well, we had a startup as an alumni of of the Banks Innovation Award called Appeal, and it was all about preserving the shelf life of fresh produce, right? So I think those kind of innovations where they're looking to extend the health and the nutrient density of fresh whole foods are, they've done well for exactly, I think, in alignment with what you're saying, Ashley. But do others have any comments? Things to add?
Yes, sort of piggybacking off of what Ashley said a little bit. I think at S2G Ventures, Ashley's perspective is very much in line with our thesis around food as medicine. I think we're starting to see a convergence between food, tech, and healthcare. In its current state, I think our healthcare system is focused and centered really around treatment and management of diseases. And I think where the food sector has a role to play is in sort of either through long-term food intervention. We're starting to see some really exciting policy tailwinds there, or just through preventative or preemptive management of chronic diseases, a lot of which are like nutritionally derived. I think there's a lot of white space there, and a lot of room for innovation and opportunity. So it's very nascent. It's an area we're excited about, and certainly an area we'll learn more.
And out of curiosity, Ashley, you mentioned like with the emulsifiers kind of potentially being, a negative for digestive health. Do you guys see any potential alternatives to that? Because, that's kind of almost, especially with this emerging plant-based space, like that's kind of like mission critical to it to get, some of these items to bind together and emulate cheeses and milks and things like that.
I think you've nailed it on the head. That's the conundrum. And again, actually, I'm coming from the perspective I was a vegetarian for 25 years. So now I'm old, but I was, on that trend very long ago. But that being said, I actually have moved to eating real food because it took me a long time to realize that, let's say, a vegetarian patty I was eating was being processed with hexane. So I don't know. I think I agree. I think the trend is important, but we have to be really mindful of the ingredients. That's the reason there was a company that we looked at called At Last. I don't know if anyone's heard of it. Speaking of, it's kind of the intersection between fungi. It's what I liked about it is an alternative protein, but it was so simple. It was literally just mycelium or mushroom and some simple ingredients. So I feel like it was kind of win-win-win that it was, now again, I haven't tried the taste profile, but which is another piece to it. I think this is a real concern that we need to be mindful of the ingredients that go into our food. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ashley and Adrienne. And I think if anyone has a final comment before this conversation and share out is great. But if anyone has a sort of final comment to share on it, and then we're going to move into the final segment, which is Trevor's going to be sharing some of our alumni highlights of companies who are working in this space. So some tangible examples for you, and we'll go from there. But any last words? Fair enough.
Can I ask one quick question, Jillian? Did everyone get in a breakout room? Yes, I can only see a handful of people. If you didn't, please let us know. I think there was some delays and I got in the wrong one, but we just want to make sure we have that fixed for next time.
Thank you guys for coordinating. I know this stuff is never easy, so.
It's an adventure with virtual.
Always is.
Okay. Let's move to Trevor then. Let's hear about some of the alumni doing some amazing things. Trevor.
Cool. Thanks, Anne. Thanks. And I can share my screen, Jillian, if you'd like, unless you have the slide.
We should be able to share. Let's see it pop up. There we go.
Oh, here we are. Great. So as today's panel explored, we're sitting at a crossroads where nutrition and the technologies that help our bodies, animals, and planet stay healthy have taken a new and prominent role in the future of food. Innovation at the forefront of this crossroad is represented by companies working to combine the medicinal with the consumable, and also with those that create new ways to derive ingredients and materials in a natural way. Our alumni network continues to lead in this space. They're at the forefront of technologies like cellular agriculture, fermentation, novel proteins. They have validated applications for naturally derived sugar, dairy, and protein alternatives. They're reimagining how we feed our livestock, and they're biofabricating unique sustainable materials for shipping. Their work reflects a growing consumer demand for healthier alternatives, products that support a triple bottom line. The next frontier of nutrition requires collaboration. And as startups mature, there's no better time to engage with our alumni that need corporate support to scale. So firstly, we're showcasing our startup named Chinova Bioworks. They're representative of innovations at the front line of clean label ingredient movement. Their technology has created a natural preservative derived from the white button mushroom, which can protect against microorganisms like bacteria, yeast, and mold. Their core product, Chiber, has a commercial application for fresh juice and yogurt, and they continue to move and innovate into different categories. As they look to expand their operation, they will accelerate growth across categories, including plant-based meats, dairy, and baked goods. Chinova is seeking to partner with ingredient companies and CPGs looking for a natural preservative and that their end consumers will understand. Secondly, we have 2020 Food Bites participant Novo Nutrients. They are a fermentation technology that transforms carbon dioxide emission into food and feed alternatives for protein ingredients. Novo Nutrients' mission is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions global impact by producing more sustainable ingredients for food and animal feed. Novo has successfully validated their core technology working with corporate collaborators such as Skretting, a Nutreco subsidiary. They have obtained regulatory approval for an aquafeed application, which is the entry point on a product roadmap that could extend into consumable products and ingredients. Partially cultural, corporate collaborations with companies like Novo Nutrients help socialize new ingredients that are becoming omnipresent across the industry. Having just closed their Series A, Novo Nutrients is looking for more licensing, joint venture, and research and development engagements to help grow their business. Finally is Bond Pet Foods. They've used cellular cultured meats to develop the world's first animal-free chicken protein for dog and cat nutrition. Their mission is to provide our pets with an optimized nutritional diet, which all began with the genetic extraction of the chicken protein. They've created a yeast culture to grow and harvest animal-free ingredients that also promote health and well-being. Bond exemplifies a growth and go-to-market strategy we are seeing from companies that innovate at the next frontier of nutrition. Bond has a flagship CPG. While working with their core technology, they develop a sort of a higher volume strategy with corporations that have the manufacturing capabilities. As Bond has matured, they've moved into a B2B offering powered by Bond approach that is appealing for curious corporations that want to explore this space without compromising brand integrity. For alumni, these bridging products help them scale and socialize new technology for consumption. For corporations, it's a way to reformulate legacy products, test their own manufacturing capabilities within a technology like cultured meat, and potentially gain market share in an ingredient segment that is surging. Bond is seeking corporate partners to collaborate both in scale manufacturing and formulation. If you'd like to learn more about these companies, you can check out the member bulletin within Swap Card application, or you can contact myself or colleagues within the Startup Insights team directly. Thank you, and back to you.
Thanks, Trevor. Yeah, if any of you want to reach out, we already got a request to the chat. We will definitely get you connected to any of these startups and make an introduction. We do apologize for some of the technical glitches today, but I think we ended up having pretty interesting conversation. I always think there's a lot more to say and a lot more to learn from each other. So feedback on how we can improve the next session. There will be another one in, I think, 2 months, correct, Jillian? So we do want to improve it so that it can really drive more value to you guys. It's a great day here in New York. I hope wherever you are, you have a beautiful spring day. And thank you for all your time and attention. And be well. Take care.